Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Car Design Dialogues Asia with me, Christopher Ludwig, Editor-in-Chief here at Car Design News and Ultima Media. Hyper-realistic textures, real-time data, and 3D digital creation. These are just some of the areas in which automotive design and gaming design are converging, both in creative tools, processes, and influences. Today, we have a very special session in which we'll be exploring how the Adobe Substance 3D toolset is being used to improve realism and CMF creativity digitally across industries like interior automotive design, architecture, and gaming. We'll be joined by Pierre Mahout, Head of Strategic Initiatives and Partnerships 3D and Immersive for Substance at Adobe, alongside special guest Ronan Mahone, who's a freelance senior 3D artist who's had a lot of experience in the gaming industry. And together, they're going to show you how to combine Substance 3D and Unreal Engine and demonstrate some amazing new workflows that Ronan has been creating with the tool. So welcome, firstly, Pierre and Ronan. Really excited to have you with us at Car Design Dialogues Asia.
Thank you very much, Christopher.
Fantastic. Well, we've got a lot of demonstration and video sharing from both. So be sure to put your questions through into the chat so that the Adobe team and Ronan can answer them during the session and afterwards. But in the meantime, I'm going to hand over to you, Pierre.
Thank you very much, Christopher. And thank you also, Ronan, for being the guest today. Indeed, there will be some really interesting content we want to share. And we definitely want to focus also on what can be done directly through a live demoing from Ronan. So first thing first, we have a little bit of intro through a video that we did together with Ronan. So as you can see at the very beginning of it, it's using a Substance 3D asset library that is available. So every material you see in this video, whether it's architecture, automotive, fashion, everything are belonging to this. And as you can see also, the modeling of those 3D assets are fairly simple. And then most of the textures and the displacements are belonging to the texture and the substance material. So here also the details, the zip, the stitches, everything are belonging to the texture. And that's what we are bringing with Adobe Substance 3D digital materials, is having this level of realism. And when you are combining to real-time technology coming from the gaming industry, like here with Unreal Engine, you are able to reach this level of realism and the level of interaction. Meaning that here, what you see are real-time. At any time, you can stop, move your point of view around, move the lighting around, and regenerate this kind of video, or even interact with it in VR, AR, or another way around. So it's really a game changer for the color, material, and finish designers, because they can see beforehand their creations and take decision directly and iterate using the virtual world. So it's regular for any digital modelers using Alias to rework on their design because of 3D. Now we are expanded it to the full scope, including the visualization expert and the color, material, and finish designer. So today we will be focusing on our new 3D offer, but wanted to highlight the fact that at Adobe, we might be fairly well known for the 2D solution we have, Photoshop, Illustrator, more recent ones such as Fresco, which is more focusing on hand painting on tablet and mobile, or XD that is more oriented to UX design. And then you also have Adobe Stock and Bridge that allowed you to manage content that you are producing with our tools, either 2D or 3D. And then on the bottom, you can see our brand new offer around 3D at Adobe with the different tools that I will be presenting today. And then you will see in action with Ronan. So to go through the different tools, let's have a quick view on it. You will see modeler, designer, sampler, painter, and stager. So the best thing is to see them in action, and then we will have a deep dive in each of those. So to see it in action, here is a short demo that was made by some of our 3D artists just in here, starting with modeler. So as you have seen, it's still private beta, but it's a really new way, intuitive way to design in VR and in desktop in a very instinctive way, like a sculptor, a real digital sculpting tool. Then we have Substance Painter, that is one of our most well-known tools that allowed you to apply textures, graphics on top of an object with a high level of detail. Switching to Stager, when you put your object in place in the context of staging, allowing to even import your CAD model that could come from CATIA, Alias, or any other tools. Here you can see quickly Sampler. So as mentioned, Sampler can capture existing materials very easily, and then you're able to put it back into a Stager scene. So it's a real ecosystem of different tools. Each tool is complementary to each other. And for each task, so you can, with Sampler, for instance, capture a material, but also an environment, a lighting environment. So if you want to put your object in place in a specific location, you can capture it with a 360 camera, as you have seen here. And in Substance Designer, you can also generate procedural structures, procedural meshes directly from the tool. So what we've been working on is really having a complementarity across the different tools, including also external tools. So you can also combine it, as you will see, with Unreal, with VRED, with Unity, with 3ds Max, with Maya. Also, the tools can also interact very easily with our toolset. So to the point of the toolset, here's a detail of what you've seen in action. Modeler on one end, that is virtual reality and desktop based, that is currently in private beta. So if you want to play around with it or to access to it, you can subscribe directly on adobe.com to have access. Then the most historical tool we have in the portfolio is Substance Designer, that is fairly famous for creating procedural and scan-based materials, and now extending to procedural modeling, as you have seen a little bit. Sampler used to be named Alchemist, is today moving forward the boundaries of digital materials and being able to capture existing samples. So definitely the best friend for color material and finish designer. Substance Painter is allowing you to combine those materials together with the meshes with a high level of details. And you will see with Ronan that you can go very deeply into the details when you are texturing, for instance, interior of cars. Finally, Stager, our latest addition to the family, is allowing you to very quickly create a 3D scene. To sustain all that, we have a very wide range of content and parametric materials, to which we've been adding recently also IBL, so lighting environments, and procedural models. So now you can really do what we called in the gaming industry kit bashing, like very quickly throw different 3D objects to recreate a scene, like a photo shoot studio, or for instance, a retailer, etc. So you can recreate a 3D scene very quickly. So that's where we stand today, and we are very pleased to introduce all those tools to you today, and then seeing it in action with Ronan right after. So quick deep dive in each of the tools. First thing first with Modeler. So Modeler is, as mentioned, like a VR tool at the very beginning, and it's kind of the follow-up of Medium that you might know, that is used with Oculus headsets. And here what you do is really having a digital clay. So the technology behind it, the SDF, is very flexible. And so you can generate and modify it, twist it, extend it, move it around in a very intuitive way, in a sculptor approach. So it's a true digital sculptor solution. Here, we are really focusing on concept modeling. So here it's an example that is closer to, I would say, concept art, spaceships and stuff like that. Because in the end, what you are producing is more a general direction. You won't do detail modeling with very high level of surfacing, you will do it with the right tool for that, like Alias or ISMSoft. But for concept, it's definitely the most efficient tool that we have, and you can play with this repetition of objects very quickly, change the size, change the scale, so you can work on proportion in a very, very intuitive way. Then Substance Designer, so as mentioned, you can create fully procedural, scan-based, and the combination of the two, what we call the hybrid materials out of Substance Designer. So here on a carbon fiber, for instance, you are interacting through a graph as you are doing with, for instance, Grasshopper or Nuke, and you are generating the different texture. And based on one material, you can generate variation. So here, for instance, you've been producing this material fully procedurally in Substance Designer. You save it in Substance Material format, SBSIR, and then you are ready to use it in VRED, Unreal, Unity, etc. And having access to the different tweaks, the different changes, you can see here on the bottom. So here to see it in action with the car paint, we could have taken any other kind of materials, but car paint is fairly obvious for the different parameters. You can independently change the coats, change the flakes, change the size of the flakes, change the density of the flakes, change the variation of scale among the flakes. So you can have as much control as you want in each of the materials. It's you to decide which dimension, which part of the material you want to be tweakable and being modified by the final users. And that's the kind of interface you have in Substance Designer. But then you will have access to similar tweaks and parameters in VRED, in Unreal, in the different tools we are integrating in. Things that are brand new to Designer is the capability to do parametric modeling. So here you are manipulating a graph again. So as you were doing for the materials, you can obviously combine the graph that is driving the models with some procedural materials. You can see here on the bottom, so the parquet floor and the leather, and then bring it back together. And then when you are doing modeling this way, you can model tires, you can model couch, you can model towers. It's then the limit is imagination. So here we have examples that are belonging to the different industry we serve, from VFX to game to architecture. Substance Sampler, another tool that is focusing on creating digital materials and, more generally speaking, capturing the physical world. So it can come from the physical samples. So here, for instance, in a color, material, and finish journey, if you have those physical samples on your desk and you want to see how it will look like on your 3D models, what you will do is take, for instance, one picture of your physical sample with your cell phone, and then turn it into a 3D materials directly by drag and dropping within a sampler. So we leverage artificial intelligence that we train on many materials in order to give you directly the best outputs at the 3D materials. And then on top of it, you can generate variation. So here, adding graphics, adding color, adding variations on top of it. And then you can combine it with others using our tool sets. So here, for instance, with Stager, but you can then use any kind of 3D tools. As soon as you have created a digital sample in Sampler, then it's ready to be used in any kind of 3D tools. So same way in Substance Painter, for instance, here, what Justin is doing, adding stitches, adding decals, adding all that. And out of Sampler and out of Painter, you can export it to use it in Maya, for instance. So here we are using it in Maya, using the Substance plugin within Maya, and recreate these materials in the Maya interface. So we have a very flexible way to import and export our digital materials through the different ecosystem of Adobe, Substance 3D tools, but also external tool coming from Autodesk, the Dassault System, or the Foundry, for instance, to give a few. And you will see it in action in Unreal in the end with Ronan. So here's another example for grounds that we just drag and drop the image and generate the different maps directly out of this artificial intelligence feature. Also, if you want to add details, here are numbers. You just drag and drop a numbers filter in the layer stack, customize the inputs, and you are able to generate those. Used to take a while to do back in the day. We streamlined everything and we made it super simple. And here, really Sampler is a tool that is aiming to color, material, and finish designer, and you don't need high-end 3D knowledge to be able to generate those kind of digital samples. Something also to extend the capability to use 3D materials across the team is the fact that we integrated to Bridge, Adobe Bridge, that is available in Creative Cloud offer for free. And so anyone can browse a large number of substance material assets and also directly from Bridge launch any of our tools, either Sampler or Designer, directly from Bridge. So that's definitely an exciting integration. Last but not least, Substance Painter is our flagship product that allowed you to take full control on texturing of your assets. And so you can load a 3D asset in OBJ or IPX format, for instance. Here, for instance, the seat of a car. Decide on your environment, lighting environment to start to texture and to apply materials to the different parts. And then as soon as you are doing it, then you will be able to do it. So here, for instance, we are getting materials from our material library, the 3D asset library, and then just drag and drop those digital materials, digital sample to the 3D mesh, adapting the size of it, and also deciding on which part we want this to apply to. So Substance Painter is very close to a Photoshop in 3D. You're loading your 3D mesh, and then you start to have a layer stack on the right to combine your different materials and the different parts of your design, and then selecting the different island, the different sub meshes of your 3D model. So you will see all in action with Ronan. So I won't deep dive more into this. I just wanted to highlight some interesting workflow. Like here, for instance, you can have something that is not completely finished, or you want to do some retake. Here, the limits between the cushion and the plastic part, you can paint those modifications because, as I was mentioning as an intro, you can paint up to displacement. So really, you can have an impact on the modeling of your object. And so you can add a smooth transition, wrinkles, and those kind of effects directly in Substance Painter, which is here a very flexible tool to do all that. Same way for adding stitches, adding gaps. So here, for instance, as a transition between the two materials you have here, you can paint on your own a gap. You don't need to model it. You don't need to go up to this kind of detail where you are still in the concept phase, when you are still early on, or if you are in a phase where you want to have hyper realistic meshes, you can do it this way in Substance Painter. So both on the concept phase and the final rendering and texturing phase of things, up to advertisement for your final object here, for instance, a car. So you will see it in action with Ronan, and you can even add some typo and details like this. Finally, the last tool that joined the family, Substance 3D Stager. So here it's a super simple way to render and to create images out of your 3D mesh. So directly from Painter, so we have a send to from Painter to Stager. We can also rely on physics. We can also rely on CAD import. So if you have something coming from SolidWorks, from CATIA, from Alias, from NX, you can import it into a Stager. And then you can create different cameras, different point of view, and render in batch the different variation. So here we have applied different substance material to this door panel. And in order to compare it, we just change them, and then with the same lighting, same point of view, and we can just next to each other compare them. Also, something that is very important is how we integrate to the rest of Adobe ecosystem, and especially Photoshop and Illustrator. So in Stager, you can import graphic design coming from Illustrator, keeping the link with the Illustrator file, the AI file. And same thing when you export the renders from Stager, you can directly edit it in Photoshop. Here, for instance, remove the background, change the color of the background directly in Photoshop, thanks to the rendering from Stager. To finish, the 3D assets library is definitely key in our offer. So we just extended to 3D models. So also 3D models are directly downloadable from the 3D assets platform. We also have been adding lighting environments by capturing real light studio or real physical environments, warehouse, apartment, etc. And you see how much the impact of the lighting and the reflection is on the object that here is just standing. Finally, the materials, that's where we are coming from, and that's what we do. So we have now, today more than 9,000 parametric materials in our library, all made with Substance Designer and or Substance Alchemist. And those parametric material allowed you to do what I showed with the car paint, but the same way with textile. So you can change independently the yarn, the color, how it has been structured, and allowed you to have a very flexible way to interact with your object. So that we are aiming at both photorealism, but also creativity and freedom. So to wrap up, when you are using a substance material, what you are able to deliver is first photorealism, then flexibility with parameters. So here, changing the embossing, changing the color, changing the roughness independently from each other, so that each material is a library of material on its own. Also saving modeling time, because you can play with displacement and normal maps here to do those kind of effects. So while you're still in the concept phase, if you want to play around with texture in the interior, or here, like here with the exterior of the car, you can very quickly and easily do it. And finally, when you have a library of digital material that is based on the Substance format, then you can reuse it in any kind of tool, from Unreal, Unity, to CATIA, to Cinema 4D, to VRED. So we made a dedicated session last time for Car Design News Europe, that you still have the recording on, about how to use substance material within VRED. So I won't dig into the detail of it, but again, you will get the parameters, you will get the presets, you will get the different resolution directly within VRED. So I encourage you to watch it. And here, the kind of final result you can get out of VRED. Same thing with Unity. So here we are drag and dropping a plastic from the 3D assets library in Unity, and you are able to change the parameters, change the presets. Same thing, if you are developing something in Substance Painter, you can export it and see it in the different tool directly here. But again, best is to see it in action. So we'll leave the floor to Ronan. He will be using the X-Town car. That is a car that we've developed with a great team of designers. For the exterior design, Takumi Yamamoto, that used to be at Citroën and then Polyphony Digital on Gran Turismo games, and now freelancing. And then Frédéric Gasson, who did the 3D modeling in Alias, to in the end being able to deliver the models to Ronan to do his magic. But I'm leaving the end to Ronan.
Thank you very much, Pierre. As you say, my background is in video games, and now more recently I'm doing a lot of real-time work. Our limitations in video games were that we couldn't do offline rendering. It all had to be dynamic and live, and now it's lovely to see that coming into other industries. So I'm going to do a little live session for you here. We're actually mid-project with this XDO, so you might see some things are a little unfinished. Myself and the CMF designer, Anais, are still working on those, but I thought it'd be really nice to show you an actual proper project that we're in the middle of. So here we are in Unreal Engine 4. The Exion itself is about 4.5 million triangles, and there's probably about 40 materials on this asset at the moment. So this scene, as I'm controlling it here, you can see it's fully real time using ray traced reflections and GI. And if I get a little closer, say, to the wheel, you can really see the level of detail that's possible. So this was all textured in Painter using materials from the 3D asset library from Designer, or some that we made ourselves using patterns that Anais would have sent over. So you can really get very close to these assets, and you can see the level of detail that we can achieve there on the wheels. If we want to go inside the car, because we've done a lot of work recently on interior, I'm just going to open up the car door. And you can see here, this is the material scheme that we've applied. So again, hyper-realistic. It's pretty amazing that this is all real-time, right? There's nothing baked in this scene. There's no baked lighting. Everything's dynamic. So if we want to change anything, if we want to animate anything, that's no problem. There's no baking to worry about. So if I get right in there to the leather, these are all parametric materials. You can see the level of detail and quality in them. We've got displays as well. And currently at the moment, I'm actually working on the seat with Anais. So again, a bit like Pierre said, all the stitching, and this was done in Painter. No, this is modeled in. It's just sort of like a blank seat asset. And even this this pattern here, this was sent over by Anais as an Illustrator file. So you can see that you can mix and match any source you want for your texturing and getting this really realistic result real time in Unreal Engine. That's my background. That's what I would have been used to for video games. So it's really exciting to see how far you can push it now. This is running 30 frames or possibly more. I think it gets up to 50, 60 frames per second. So again, right down to sort of stitch level detail. Got a little XTN logo here. Put that everywhere. So you can really see the quality and the detail that we've achieved in this real-time scene. So yeah, that's all live. That's running in Unreal right now on my machine. I'm going to show you how this is made. Talk a bit about our process and how we get to this point. So I'm going to show you quickly first. This is a CMF board from Anais that she would have sent over to me, and it describes her choices for the color, material, and finish. She's talking about which material she wants to use, what color, what finish, maybe parameters. A lot of the time she'll send these materials over already set up. She's already pre-chosen a particular preset. She's made a new one. She set the shape of the carbon fiber weave. And really for me, a lot of the time is really just drag and drop. And I might get some colors from her as well. So we're going to jump quickly over to Substance Painter, which is here. And I'm just going to drag over my color selection from Anais. So this might be how you start with your interior, for example. This is what I'd call sort of blocking out the materials, getting a feel for the interior itself. I'm going to start with the door, and like Pierre said, it's really Photoshop for 3D. So I'm going to start maybe with a little bit of plastic on the top. This is my layer stack on the top right, and you can see there it's applied to the entire door. Now, one thing to say, and maybe a little tip for starting out, beforehand, I set up what's called an ID map, which is set up in your 3D program, and in it you can sort of designate different areas of material. So I can say here, I think the dash and the side of this trim are going to run together. We're going to share this bottom material. It may be across different surfaces. But this is just a really quick way for me to block out in 3D before I've even started. It's not to say that I can't change my mind later. This is a really good tip for speeding up your workflow. So we're going to put a little bit of plastic at the top here, and we're going to add a mask with color selection. And I'm just going to say, oh, I just want this color to be the plastic. Now it's looking a little bit gnarly to me there, and the scale is a little wrong. So I'm going to change the grain to maybe a little bit finer detail. Perhaps I want to reduce the roughness a little bit, maybe make it a little glossier. Okay, so that's the top there. Here on my left, you can see this is actually the selection of materials that NA sent me. So I'm very quickly just dragging and dropping. I'm going to add another color selection mask, and I'm going to limit that to this section up here. I'm just panning the light, checking it in different lighting conditions while I'm working, seeing how the materials interact with each other. She's chosen some nice metal finish for this handle and the trim here. Again, I'm going to add a mask with a color selection and just pick this lovely purple color. So I'm looking at this cross brush metal here, and I think instead of the sort of cross shape, because it doesn't really fit with the flowing lines, I'm going to change it to, these are presets down here for that material. This is all the controls. And I'm going to say, actually, it's more like straight machined aluminium. We want that nice sort of flowing lines. And again, maybe the tiling is a little bit off with a bit finer detail. Coming down to this section here, I believe we went for a little bit of fabric. And I pick a color. Looks a little bit lumpy. Let's go in here, increase the tiling. Maybe it's 8. And instead of using the height, I'm going to use the normal information, which is a little bit finer. And maybe let's just increase the tiling a little bit more. So I'm noticing that this looks a little bit low res, but that's just purely because my settings for this texture set a little lower. So I'm going to bump up the resolution. All these materials have detail in them up to 8K resolution. So if you increase your output size, there's loads more detail there in the material. It's not going to just be a blurry mess. You can see that now I've got little fine fabric stitching, and you can see the little fine details. Finally, down the bottom, I think for this car we went for something a bit experimental. I think Anais chose a concrete of all things. I didn't think it was possible, but then she showed me some reference. She knew better than me for concept cars and things. So you can get some really nice formed concrete, it turns out. So again, down here, you can see these are the colors that she chose for me. So I'm just gonna pick on that color. And you can see I've got 2 colors here, you know, between the spotting and the sort of base color. So again, probably I'm gonna put it fairly close to the original. Maybe it's a little darker, perhaps. Just color pick that again and just change the value down a little bit. And I think there's probably too many sort of pock marks here. So let's just reduce the surface imperfection and increase the tiling. Okay, so you'll probably know better than me the technical term for this really formed concrete, but it's like a really refined material. Okay, so I've kind of roughly done that door. And now you get to see sort of the power of what I've done here. So I've just sort of textured this door. However, what I'm going to quickly do is grab all these materials, add them to a group, just call this material base or something. And I'm going to instance this across the entire asset now. So what that does is it just looks at that ID map again across the entire asset and applies the materials that I've selected. So if I go here, instantiate across the whole asset, Substance just kind of goes, okay, I'm going to splat that over everything, and I'm going to use your color ID maps as a way to designate where I put things. So you can see already I've mostly textured the rest of the car. Let's jump into the steering wheel instead now. You can isolate, obviously, a little section of what you're working on. It's got a steering wheel here, got a little badge in the center, a little logo. Let's turn that off for now. So I think Anais chose some leather for the steering wheel itself. I'm just going to make these icons a little smaller, and okay, we've got a fine leather. Just gonna put that on here. Again, I'm going to just limit it to a couple of areas of the steering wheel with the color selection. Okay, and change the scaling. A lot of the time I just end up splatting on what she's chosen and just interpreting maybe some of her suggestions on how the grain should flow. So that sort of looks okay to me, except for I think the color is wrong. She wanted sort of a nice dark black here. And on the side grips, we're going to use a leatherette. And same old process, pick a color, apply it to here. And I think she wanted to make some contrast here, so we used a lighter color. Again, I'm going to probably use the normal, or maybe the height as well, just give it an extra punch. Increase the tiling. You can really see how you can start to see how this is working as a whole. Let's see, what else do we want? We want a little bit of plastic for these paddles here. Seems fun to me. And perhaps some carbon fiber for this little intersection. Okay, so we've got carbon fiber in there. Finally, I've added some stitching here. I'm just going to turn on that layer. So the accent color that Anais used was this nice yellow, and I've just applied that with a stitching brush. I'll show you a little bit more on that later. And finally, we've got our little logo, which is the Substance S, and it's sort of being embossed out of the metal. Now, the power of Painter, you can sort of say, well, this is all just being driven by a simple grayscale logo. It's a black and white image. It doesn't actually even have, you know, any of this beveling on it, and that's all being controlled by some parametric options here. So I can interpret how this lovely black and white image is being used, or I can just come along here and, you know what, I'm going to swap it out. The logo has changed. I'm going to change it perhaps to some text instead. I'm going to increase the font size for a second. You know, and this could be whatever your brand name is, whatever your car name is. You can adjust all sorts of parameters here. And maybe you want to change the placement and the positioning. And if I just come back down to my logo here, it's just like Photoshop. I'm just moving around simple masks and applying where they go. So that shows you how quickly you can build a layer stack that can be adjusted as you go along. Steering wheel is looking pretty nice. I think I ended up right now in the project, I'm starting to add some buttons. Obviously, they're not finished. I'm just using all the same ones all over the place, so this probably wouldn't fly. But you can see just, you know, a couple of layers very quickly, and my asset has almost textured itself. Let's come over to this door trim, and maybe let's go to paint, perhaps. Just try to paint on here. And I think she went sort of a deep black again, or slightly blue tinge in it. And you know, let's there's all the clear coat options and everything that that Pierre was showing you earlier. You know, and you've got all sorts of nice presets that you can just quickly jump to as well if you want red paint or whatever. So let's just go back to our gray paint. I think I'm pretty happy with that. And yeah, I mean, that's the car very quickly, mostly textured. Now, at this point in the project, I've just blocked out some materials. I've applied an ACES color material and a finish board. And she wants to see how it's looking because, you know, it's not a one-way process. We we probably need to come back a few times, go back and forward, iterate on our design. So I'm going to quickly send this asset to Substance Stager. So again, this is live. This is all going to happen right in front of you. I'm going to send it over to Stager. We can try a couple of different environment lighting options. We can get in closer, maybe get some higher quality renders with contact shadows and things that maybe in Painter you can't appreciate while you're working dynamically and really quickly. Maybe you want to go over to Stager and see the environment closer to what it would be to give that back to an ACE, the color, material, and finish designer, and just say, here's what it looks like in context. Here's a slightly higher quality result. So here I am in Stager. That's just straight sent over, one button press. A bit like Painter, you can just rotate the lighting really quickly. Stager comes with ray tracing. I'll enable that now, just to get that higher quality result. It's interactive, so it'll improve as we sort of watch it. Let's just change the lighting a little bit. You know, now we can start to get in close, and ACE can tell me your grain is too large, or the fiber on the pattern for the fabric is too small. She can make her changes. She can even just send me over materials. I can come over here and start to play with the studio environment settings. So there's lots of presets here. These are full environment stages. So this is using captured HDRIs just to give you, you know, that higher quality response. And it iterates as you sort of update it here. Maybe you want to come into the seat, look a little closer, check out how her pattern is working. And this is just live in the viewport. If I want to actually send a render over to her, it takes about 2 minutes on high quality settings to get a full 4K image. So that is probably the process that I would do. I'd send her over a few of these images, get some feedback, see how her design is working, and she'd probably say, you know what, actually, these materials, can I send them back to you again? And let's change X, Y, and Z. So it's nice that the process isn't just one way. I'm not just taking her information and sort of applying it, and that's it. Now, the good thing about the way I've set this up here is changes, a bit like that, that I said there a minute ago. If we want to change any one of these materials, so maybe I'll go back to all the libraries here, have a look at some, as Pierre said, you can actually, see, we could open up the 3D asset library. And this is where you can browse through all the beautiful materials that we've got. They've even got collections specific to automotive, you know, packaging. This is one we did recently. So you come down to, I believe it's sportswear, automotive, whatever, you know, prototyping. And we can just directly download these materials straight into our scene. So yeah, if I want to very quickly change the look of the car itself, perhaps instead of this fabric, we've got a wood, perhaps. So how quick was that? You know, just change one material. It's applied to the entire car. Color is probably a bit questionable. And maybe we want to change the orientation, you know, change how the flow of the actual material is looking. And maybe we want the walnut instead. Walnut looks a little lighter, looks a little nicer. Instead of the smoked plastic, let's go with kind of a glossy plastic instead. So very quickly, you know, we're changing the look of the entire car just with a couple of button presses. And this scene is already set up to my Unreal scene, so I can, again, these are all my material sets, and I can just set them to output 4K textures. And we're talking like 120 textures there, and might take a moment or two to calculate all the details and send it straight over to Unreal, where I can further play with how it looks in my scene. So that's computing all the results over here. But yeah, 120 4K textures. I don't know how many gigabytes of information that is. It just calculates all through them quite quickly, and then just flings them over either to Unreal, or you could send it back to Stager if you want to.
Ronan, this has been fantastic. I think we could probably go on deeper and more demonstrations, because it's so real like, and it's so beautiful. But I think just for this session, we're gonna have to wrap up in a moment or two. So maybe I'd just like to quickly bring Pierre back on as well. And thank you both for this fantastic demonstration. So real, so lifelike. The textures and doing it in real-time data without that high-end rendering need just unlocks so many possibilities. So really exciting to see this. And just a reminder to our audience that Ronan and Pierre are available to connect with on a virtual event platform. We've already been chatting with them in the chat, I'm sure. So connect with them. Go to the Adobe booth in our virtual exhibition space, and there's lots more to come there. As Pierre referenced, we have other videos from Adobe as well, from our past sessions too. So we'll have this fully available to see. Thanks again to Ronan and Pierre. It's been great to have you here at Car Design Dialogues Asia.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and congrats, Ronan. And thank you also, Anaïs, our color material and finish designer who worked with Ronan on this.
Thank you.
Absolutely beautiful. Thanks, guys.